Welcome to Data Bytes. In this episode, I'll show you how to get the most out of your logs by parsing them using Grok patterns. We've recently made some great improvements to our Parsing UI, which makes parsing your logs in New Relic even easier than before. Let's get started. So here I am in the New Relic's Logs UI, and I've run a search to look at my Linux varlog secure logs, where I've been noticing a lot of invalid or failed SSH login attempts. These could be attempts to penetrate my server or network. You can see these logs from the SSHD process with the text invalid from some user, a source IP address, and a port number. These logs are useful just as they are, but what would be even more useful is to extract out the user, source IP, and port information into attributes so that I can facet or search on those specific fields. I also want to create an alert to detect excessive failed login attempts, especially from the same user or IP, which I can't easily do without being able to facet or group by. So let's create a new parsing rule to see how I would do that. If you've used our Parsing UI in the past, you'll notice we've made some improvements. You can now parse data from any existing attribute, not just the message attribute. You can use NRCL where clauses with multiple conditions to filter the logs you want to parse. You can paste in log messages to test your Grok pattern if you don't have any recent logs, or if you want to validate a Grok pattern before onboarding some new logs. And you no longer need to go to an external Grok pattern tester, like the Grok debugger, to validate your Grok. You can do it right here in the Parsing UI. First, I'll give my new parsing rule a name, like invalid login attempts. For this rule, I want to parse the user, IP address, and port from the message attribute. The message attribute is the default, but you can parse any existing available attribute by searching for it in the field to parse selector. I can even enter an attribute name here that doesn't exist yet. For example, if I was planning to add some new logs and I'm creating the parsing rule in advance. Next, I'll enter a where clause to match the logs I want to parse. In this case, I'll start by matching on the file path attribute for my Linux secure logs. Notice that this returns other log events in the secure logs that I'm not trying to parse. As a best practice when creating parsing rules, you should always use specific filter conditions to limit the events being returned as much as possible to only the ones that match your parsing rule. This will improve parsing time and performance since our parsing engine won't be trying to parse events that don't match your Grok pattern. So for that reason, I'll add an additional condition to my where clause. Next, I'll select one of the invalid login events from the Choose Your Matching Logs section. If there are no recent events in the last 30 minutes, you can select the Paste Log tab and paste in a sample event. In this case, I have some events in the last 30 minutes that match my filter. So now I can enter my Grok pattern and validate its working in the Parsing Rule and Output section. I'll use the following Grok pattern to match the logs and extract the username, source IP, and port into attributes. I can see in the output section that the Grok pattern is working. I can select a few other events to be sure, but since all these events have a consistent format, I should be good. I'll select Create Rule, and now all the new invalid login events that come in should have the username, source IP, and port attributes parsed out. Let's go back to the Logs UI to search and validate. If I look at some of the new logs coming in, I can see that they now contain the new attributes, username, source IP, and port, that I've parsed out as expected. I can also now run some queries in NRCL to facet on the new attributes. Let's run this query to see how many invalid logins I've seen from each user. I can also now easily create an alert to notify my security team of excessive failed logins so they can investigate. I hope you found this useful, and thanks for watching.